The rise of Putin, from KGB to Kremlin. Vladimir Putin's journey from a KGB officer to the president of Russia is remarkable. Born in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, Putin's early life was marked by post-war hardships. He joined the KGB in 1975, serving primarily in East Germany. After the Berlin Wall fell, Putin returned to Russia and entered politics. His rise was swift, catching the eye of President Boris Yeltsin. Yeltsin appointed him prime minister in 1999. By the end of that year, Yeltsin resigned, making Putin the acting president. He won the subsequent election in 2000, beginning his reign over Russia. Taming the oligarchs, a double-edged sword. Putin moved against the oligarchs who had amassed immense wealth during the 1990s privatization. These oligarchs tied to Yeltsin symbolized corruption and inequality. Putin pledged to rein them in, promising equitable wealth distribution. The high-profile case was Mikhail Khodorkovsky, head of Yukos. He was arrested in 2003 for fraud and tax evasion. His arrest sent shockwaves, signaling no one was untouchable. Yukos assets fell under state control. Other oligarchs fled Russia, fearing similar fates. Putin's crackdown had mixed reactions. Some praised him for challenging the corrupt elite. They argued it was necessary to prevent a powerful oligarchy. Critics argued it was a power grab, replacing elites loyal to him. Economic resurgence, oil boom, or Putin's genius. Russia experienced significant economic growth during Putin's early years in power. The country benefited from soaring oil and gas prices, its main exports, which fueled government spending on infrastructure, social programs, and military modernization. This economic boom led to a significant reduction in poverty and an increase in living standards for many Russians. Putin's supporters credit his economic policies, such as tax reforms and deregulation, for creating a more favorable investment climate and fostering growth. They argue that his focus on stabilizing the economy after the chaos of the 1990s created a foundation for prosperity. They also point to his efforts to diversify the economy beyond its reliance on natural resources, investing in sectors like technology and manufacturing. However, critics argue that Russia's economic success during this period was largely due to external factors, particularly the global commodity boom, rather than Putin's policies. They point out that the Russian economy remains heavily dependent on oil and gas exports, making it vulnerable to price fluctuations. They also criticize the lack of economic diversification, arguing that Putin's focus on state-controlled industries stifles innovation and competition. Section 4. A Helping Hand, Russia and the Aftermath of 9/11. In the aftermath of the September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks on the United States, Putin was one of the first world leaders to offer condolences and support to President George W. Bush. He authorized the use of Russian airspace for humanitarian aid flights to Afghanistan, and allowed the United States to establish military bases in Central Asia, which bordered Afghanistan, for operations against the Taliban. Putin's cooperation with the United States in the wake of 9/11 was seen as a potential turning point in relations between the two former Cold War rivals. It signaled a willingness to put aside historical differences and work together on issues of common interest, particularly the fight against terrorism. This period of cooperation, however, was short-lived. The United States-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, which Russia opposed, marked a turning point. Tensions rose further as NATO expanded eastward, incorporating former Soviet bloc countries, which Russia saw as a threat to its security interests. The relationship further deteriorated following the 2014 annexation of Crimea and the conflict in eastern Ukraine, leading to a new era of mistrust and confrontation. Section 5. The bear flexes its muscles, military modernization under Putin. Since coming to power, Putin has made modernizing and strengthening the Russian military a top priority. Under his leadership, Russia has significantly increased its military spending, investing heavily in new weapons systems, including hypersonic missiles, advanced fighter jets, and nuclear submarines. He has also overseen a major restructuring of the armed forces, focusing on improving training, readiness, and combat capabilities. Putin's focus on military modernization is driven by his desire to restore Russia's status as a global superpower, capable of defending its interests on the world stage. He sees a strong military as essential to deterring aggression from the West, which he views as increasingly hostile towards Russia. Putin's assertive foreign policy, particularly in Georgia, Syria, and Ukraine, has demonstrated his willingness to use military force to achieve strategic objectives. This military buildup has raised concerns in the West, particularly among NATO members, who see it as a threat to European security. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in eastern Ukraine have further heightened tensions, leading to increased military spending by NATO countries and a renewed focus on deterrence. Section 6. Protector or Aggressor? The conflict in Ukraine. The 2014 annexation of Crimea and the subsequent conflict in eastern Ukraine marked a turning point in relations between Russia and the West. Russia's actions, condemned by the international community as a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, led to a series of economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation. Putin justified the annexation of Crimea, which has a majority Russian population, by claiming that ethnic Russians were under threat from the Ukrainian government following the ouster of pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych. He also argued that Crimea historically belonged to Russia, and that its people had expressed their will to rejoin Russia in a referendum. In eastern Ukraine, Russia provided support to separatists who launched an armed rebellion against the Ukrainian government. Putin claimed that Russia was acting to protect Russian-speaking populations in the Donbas region from discrimination and violence by Ukrainian nationalists. The conflict in eastern Ukraine has continued for years, claiming thousands of lives and displacing millions. Section 7. The Putin Paradox: Popularity and Dissent. Despite international condemnation, Putin maintains high approval ratings within Russia. Supporters see him as a strong leader who restored Russia's global standing. His control over state media and crackdown on opposition stifles dissent. Many credit him with restoring national pride after the Soviet collapse. Yet, discontent simmers with corruption, inequality, and repression. Protests signal not all Russians are content with the status quo. The future of Russia under Putin remains a topic of global interest. Whether he tightens his grip or seeks transition remains to be seen. Vladimir Putin continues to shape Russia's path forward, with many believing in a prosperous future under his leadership.